Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zero Day Dispatch's monthly dialogue series. I'm Priya, the founder and editor in chief of Zero Day Dispatch, and I'm joined today by Rohana, our cyber policy research assistant. At Zero Day Dispatch, we are committed to creating a platform that encourages global conversations in cybersecurity and digital policy. Our mission is to amplify voices from the global majority, underrepresented communities, regions, organizations, experts, independent groups, and persons to bring truly diverse perspectives to the forefront of these discussions. For today's panel, we are looking at Nepal's digital economy, which is experiencing remarkable growth, driven by increasing internet penetration, mobile banking adoption, and a burgeoning e-commerce sector, while digital payment platforms like eSeva and Kalti are transforming financial access and tech startups are creating new economic opportunities, the country faces significant infrastructural challenges. Today, our distinguished panel will explore issues such as digital privacy concerns, cyber threats to financial institutions, and the need for a robust Nepali digital infrastructure. They will also address the widening technology access gap across gender, geography, and communities, which threatens inclusive economic progress and highlights the need for equitable digital development strategies. Before we introduce our expert speakers, Rohana will outline some housekeeping rules for the session. Hi, Rohana.
Welcome, everyone. Hi, Priya. So before we dive in, let me quickly run through some Zoom tips to help us have a great session together. This will be a 1 hour discussion. There will be 30 minutes allotted for the panelists, 10 minutes each, followed by a 10-minute conversation between the panelists. The last 15 minutes are allocated for the audience for their questions. Please be aware that this session is being recorded. By participating, you consent to being recorded. All attendees will be muted throughout the presentation. Only speakers and hosts will have their video on. Attendees can keep their video off or on. Please use the chat box to submit questions. We'll address them during Q&A session at the end. We recommend using speaker view for the best experience. This recording will be submitted to various social media outlets. It will be free of charge and for educational purposes only. Priya, I think you're muted.
That tends to happen quite often. Thank you, Rohana. I'm delighted to introduce our speakers today. Each speaker will start with their presentation after their introduction. Today, our first speaker is Mr. Vivek Rana. Vivek is an ICT professional with multidisciplinary experiences in public administration, e-governance, auditing, finance, strategy, and IT change management, and he brings powerful insights from a broad career in digital enterprise architecture, banking and finance innovation, cross-border cybersecurity, as well as policy development across Asia, Pacific, and the United States. Welcome, Vivek. I think Vivek is muted as well.
Thank you, Priya.
You're
I'm right
welcome.
there now. Good. Thank you for having me in the show. I'm really excited to be in the show with both of you, as well as with the panelists right here. So how do I start? Is there anything that you just want me to cover, or should we just...
So I think for start, it's just like we can basically start off with your perspectives, your thoughts. What do you think about the whole process? So we can just take it off from there.
Okay, thank you. Well, Nepal has made some remarkable progress over the years, especially in the digital front. In specifically, when you talk about digital front, I would say during payment systems and digital wallet. Now, apparently, the digital ecosystem has not been able to expand and go beyond that. And there are many reasons for that. One of the reason is there's not been much investment in this sector. And the players who are already in there are the ones who are getting most of the benefit, and they are trying to control the sector by uh, limiting new entrants to come in. That's primarily my take on the digital systems in Nepal. However, there are new startups that are trying their level best. But since the whole entire concept of digital ecosystem is not well developed, it has become very difficult for the new players to connect their system with a platform, because we don't have a platform, and most of the fintechs that have actually entered the ecosystem have their own platform. So that makes the new entrants very, very difficult to be part of the national digital ecosystem in Nepal. That's my personal take on this.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vivek. So our second speaker is Karvika Thapa. She is the CEO at Kimbu Tech, an international software company that provides IT solutions and outsourcing services. Karvika is passionate about grassroots education to benefit women in tech. She is also a prolific writer focusing on developmental challenges facing Nepal, which is evolving from its deep-rooted culture norms towards becoming a more tech-accepting society. Welcome, Karvika.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. It's evening here in Nepal. It's 9 p.m. and we're all gathered to talk about, the most exciting stuff here about Nepal's tech ecosystem, and to be part of this in the last 20 years that I've been in this industry. Out of that, 14 years in US, directly working at the corporate houses in US, and then I moved back to Nepal for some reason. Since then I've enjoyed my journey here, and I feel that Nepal is going through this tech boom, which I called, and it's amazing to be part of this. And so far, really interesting to see that Nepal was coming out of energy crisis and civil war, and we had pretty much lost the momentum, and did not able to catch as much as tech wave as we would want as a country. So coming out of that, and then in an era where we're all excited to come together and leapfrog in some of the technology that in terms of using phone as our payment system versus using the plastic cards, so we've sort of leapfrog in certain technology, which is good for Nepal, and we hope to do that. We hope to do that more as we're catering to the rest of the world with AI and the newer technology, and with one of the youngest, people that we have. Our average age is 24, and with that amount of force, with the young force, we're really looking forward to, leapfrog with the latest technology and sort of be that global, tech hub that, in the South Asia. I personally and feel that Nepal could be that in the coming years, in terms of development, in terms of support, in terms of innovation, and in terms of climate change, as we're facing severe threats, and and impacted more as part of being very, very close to the bigger mountains, and contributing less to the global front. But more than that, there's so many aspects of innovation that needs to come out, as Nepal being on the agriculture side. We have 70 to 80% of our population in agriculture, so we're really hoping that we can ignite the agri-tech part of the business. On the tourism side, as you know, with Nepal being always known to be one of the best places to travel, but one of the best top mountain to climb, and the best people in the world, the friendliest people, which I can claim, and the best host, I guess. So with all of that, but tech coming in, bigger than tourism, in the last year with the research, $515 million of export that we did in 2022 shows a significant, significant progress towards, being this tech, hub that we're dreaming of. And the other aspect that I really want to touch is, Nepal not being known as a tech destination. So that is something that we as a tech community has been working very closely as, putting Nepal in the digital map, in the digital global map, that Nepal is a destination for the tech. And consider Nepal, we're still competitive in terms of cost, but having said that, we can provide the best quality, we can contribute towards, and we are contributing. A few of the companies that are being born here are being listed in NASDAQ in the coming months, and there's a lot of success stories. Like, we've been contributing to the Hollywood animation, we're contributing to the healthcare data analytics, which has been also Nepal's major component. And along with that, we are also contributing to the major tech innovative development. And I consider being part of this AI revolution, that Nepal is going to be equally competitive in terms of machine languages and, all of these newer technology that's are coming up. Our youth is being able to leverage that technology and sort of, be ahead. But, with one of the forums like this is also contributed to putting Nepal in the digital map. And along with that, I want to cover a little bit on the diversity or inclusive tech, that, we see tech coming up, but there's so much work that needs to be done in the STEM side of the business, which I mean is bringing more girls, more women to this sector. We're still seeing very minimum presence, of women into this sector. And that is something I'm very passionate about, running. That's one of the primary reasons I came back to Nepal and started my company, to bring in more women to this sector, right? So, but the work goes all the way, not just at the top level or not just at, getting them into development, but it starts really early on with any other STEM challenges that we face. The girls needs to be exposed, to technology and to be, our government to leverage, similar forces or similar energy towards this sector for us to be able to leverage more and more girls contributing to the GDP, contributing to the economy, and contributing to the global innovation. So that is something that I'm passionate. Having said that, we've seen a momentum of, women coming into the sector, but we're also lacking in the rural areas where we have tons of, girls that are looking for this opportunity. They're waiting for these opportunities. And, as global leaders like all of us, we can work towards bringing more girls so that, it's a better world, a more inclusive world with more innovation coming from that side. We are spending a lot and we're trying to ignite our resource pool. And, we have around approximately 60,000 to around approximately 100,000 people contributing to the sector, freelancing, corporate, private, all of these. That's sort of the data we have. But we do want to, increase that, at least twice or 3x in the next couple of years. The government and all the forces are part of this innovative. Our government of Nepal has declared an IT decade for the next 10 years, promising significant employment, promising significant, investment in, inclusive technology in terms of local products and services, data centers, in infrastructure, in increasing the people that are into this sector, and also local innovation. Those are the priority sectors that we've been able to work closely with the government to be able to bring that this significant investment that's going to happen. And of course, cybersecurity and data centers, AI, revolution, robotics, IoTs, and all of these sectors is still growing from all fronts. But all of these are going to ultimately contribute towards Nepal's, the tech boom that I sort of started with. And really fortunate to be part of this, exciting journey for Nepal, and for the force that we are contributing. We hope to contribute more, and with all of our support, I think we can reach there. I hope I've reached my 10 minutes or probably more, but I'll stop there and probably come back.
You are totally on time, Karvika, and thank you so much. Our next speaker is Mr. Manoj Ghimire. Manoj is a tech entrepreneur who builds products and services that use deep technology on data analyses, machine learning, and information security domains. He also teaches as part-time faculty at the Institute of Engineering, Pulchok campus in Nepal, where he teaches data mining to engineering graduates. Welcome, Manoj.
Yeah, thank you, Priya, and thank you for having me here. So let me begin from a short introduction. My name is Manoj Ghimire, as you already mentioned. Started my career from cybersecurity with a company called Lockpoint, which was a kind of global success, which went on to sell its product to companies like Boeing and Airbus and stuff. So that company, I can actually proudly say that it actually ingrained some cybersecurity roots into Nepal together with Vivek Ghana. I mean, he is one of the pioneers that we have in this industry. But later on in my career, I mean, I'm more into fintech backends right now, where we make ledgers, we do reconciliations and things like that. In terms of progress we made, I actually passed out my engineering on December 2005, which sounds like ages ago. Back then, when we were just about to pass out, we were looking for opportunities, and then we were insecure of our future and all that. And the biggest company in Kathmandu Valley was called D2 Hockey, and it actually had 23 engineers. And we were all speaking with our friends like, oh, wow, there is a company with 23 software engineers in Nepal, and then maybe we could get an opportunity, stuff like that. But these 20 years staying in this industry, I think we have done a lot, where I myself run a sizable company, and I have at least 20 friends who run 100+ development agencies. So we have come quite far. In terms of cybersecurity as well, like I mentioned earlier, I started my career from there, and the product that we built was a pretty high end. It was in SIEM space, security information event management. And back in the days, even if we went to banks, which actually had a bit of digital presence, when we went to them and then tried to pitch them our products, then they used to say, "Oh, we already have firewalls. Why do we need things like this?" But if we see now, after 20 years, we have come a long way, where I can see that a lot of tech stack has been invested on by the banks into securing the information, privacy, and money of the individuals. So on that front as well, I mean, we have come a long way. In terms of policy level things, I mean, there are some domestic policies that I think the government, we as a society need to work on, like creating local demands for the local entrepreneurs, some special economic zones like the other economies that we see in China or India, where you incentivize the tech entrepreneurs to actually do the startups. The other thing that we have been talking a lot is actually allowing these companies, whoever has shown promise, to actually go abroad and then open up their subsidiaries so that they can do their business there. So these are some sort of domestic policies that we could possibly work on, but possibly that is something that we go on and talk with our ministers, with our bureaucrats and things like that. Especially on this forum, especially in this forum, what I wanted to request was, in terms of how our tech sector grows from now onwards, it's for sure going to grow. There is no question around that. But the speed of growth at which we are going to grow is dependent a bit on domestic policy, and I think a lot on the diaspora that we have right now. And then that is, I think, the area that is going to contribute the most in terms of international expansion of these domestic products and services that we've built. So on that front, I actually have a special request to the Nepalese diaspora that is spread all over the world with a three-step approach. The first step is try to engage and connect with local entrepreneurs, try to know what they are working on, and then try to connect them with some other people that are working on the similar domain over there. If you have some projects that you want to work on, then possibly you can assign it to those teams. And the last step would be to partner with the domestic services and products and then taking it to the international markets. Actually, I myself have been lucky to be involved with few of these initiatives, where one of the very successful Nepalese who went on to the US 20 years ago with a couple of $100 is a multimillionaire over there running stores. And then we are actually collaborating with him in making a back office for the retail convenience chain. It's a very interesting story. Other story from Japan as well. I actually read a couple of months ago where Nepalese going to Japan, they have around 5,000 restaurant outlets, the Nepalese diaspora. So things like these actually create opportunities for domestic entrepreneurs. So I actually want to use this forum for the diaspora to introspect into the Nepalese tech ecosystem and then try to find people who they can possibly partner with. Now, talking about the local ecosystem, Vivek touched a bit on that. But to add on to that, I think up to a couple of years ago, all of the local players, the local companies, they actually worked very independently. I mean, they were not interacting with each other too much. But lately, maybe as an industry, we all have realized that we need to collaborate more. We need to have shared voices and things like that. For that reason, associations like NASIT, the Nepalese Association of IT and software services providers, or if we talk about the CNI Council or even the MCHAM, they are more active in trying to create joint voices so that we can lobby with the policymakers and things like that. That's really great. In terms of digital ecosystems, one thing that I would want to recommend the platform operators or all the players over here. I mean, be it the big digital players or be it the banks or be it the conglomerates. I think digitally we should take a more open approach. Even if you see the public sector, then the public sector is also trying to control end-to-end experience, where they are trying to create the user experience as well, either it be the mobile apps or web apps, and then do the backends as well. It's very similar with the digital platforms. It's very similar with the banks and the telcos and stuff. But if we open the things a bit up, provide APIs so that new pass outs of the universities can build something really innovative on top of those APIs and then be part of the ecosystem. I think that is one of the approaches that would lure our young people to actually build something, do something, and then be more aspirant about the future they have in Nepal. So that's it. Wait for now. More later. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your valuable insights. So I guess now we're gonna phase on to our second part of this panel, where basically what we like to do is engage in conversations and questions from panelist to panelist, which I agree can be like one of the most interesting sections of this panel. So I can leave the floor open for any of the panelists to ask each other questions about this particular topic. So I leave the floor open now for questions from the panelists.
Okay, let me begin. Since Vivek Dai is here, and then I am a big admirer of whatever he has done to the ecosystem. I mean, I touched a bit on the progress that I've seen on the cybersecurity space, on the corporate, on the public, and those domains. But Vivek Dai actually can stretch it much far. I'm talking about from 2008, but maybe he can start from 1990s or 2000s. So I want to hear his perspective on, in terms of cybersecurity, how do you think the corporates, the public sector, and overall as an ecosystem we have progressed in last 20 to 30 years?
Thank you, Manoj. You can hear me now, right? Okay. Thank you for asking me that question. A lot of people tell that you are not a very optimist person to me, that you try to show there are a lot of problems. You try to show that there are a lot of challenges more than problems. And, I have been optimist for a long time. But what I have seen over these years is you can only take optimism to a certain level. You guys have invested in this sector. You guys have put money in this sector. You guys have invested time away from your family in this sector. And so have I. And when I don't see the sector progressing, it doesn't make me feel very good. And the reason why I say that, if you look at countries of similar size, similar economy, and similar GDP in Asia or even Africa, or even to an extent in Pacific, and try to compare that how we have grown as compared to them. If you compare it with Nepal, you might be saying, oh, we're doing far better, compared to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. There is some satisfaction. But when you really, take that leap and say, let's try to compare that with a country of a similar size somewhere in Africa, that's when you feel the pinch. That's where you feel that, oh, I don't think we are making the progress as we are supposed to do. And, we have to be optimistic. We definitely have to be optimistic in thinking in long run, because there have been investment made, people have lives. But what my concern is, the government has a major role in this, extremely major role, especially in countries like Nepal, because if you look at where is most spending coming from, it's coming from the government side. Now the government spending has really gone down. Government is not putting in that money in terms of infrastructure, in terms of public confidence, in terms of opening up new markets. And second, what is even more worrisome is we've not come up with the new policies. We've not come up with policies that's going to help entrepreneurship. We've not come up with policies that's an equal playing field for everybody. Because if you're wanting to have the youth stay in Nepal, if you want to have the youth be engaged in national projects where they can get, experience like NID, you can't just be saying it. You have to create space for them. if you don't create space from youth, they'll run away. They will find a different way to do different things, and they will go to a different country. We've been saying over years that hey, we should do something for the youth, the graduates. They're very important for us for the future. Nepal is over 65% is youth population. But at the same time, if you really go back and see how many policies have actually come up that are actually helping these people to get into tech industry, have we created the space for them to come back? And the other part is, are the policies that are coming up, is it coming up untimely? We have our laws that are almost 20 years ago that was first drafted, Electronic Transaction Act. And it's very difficult to prosecute somebody for cybercrime. Now, you can't be fighting the latest technology using a legal instrument that was developed 20 years ago. So some of these things really worry me. And these are very basic things. These are things that even a high school kid would be able to say that hey, you guys need to do something. So we're really not, doing the basic stuff to get these things moving up. And whatever has been done in this area or in this business, are people, are the younger entrepreneurs who still see that there is possibilities, especially, private sector. The other part, which is very, very difficult in Nepal, is the private equity and venture capital. It's very difficult for IT and tech firms to acquire, venture capital funds. And even when they acquire, there are a lot of restrictions, because I work very closely with them. You see, there's so much restrictions that it's very difficult for them to attract capital. So I think these are some key areas that we really need to hone in, and then ask ourselves, like, if we really want this sector to move on, if we want the sector to develop, we should at least have what I call the building blocks ready for it. Otherwise, there were a lot of people who will be, again, mass exodus of people going overseas, and people will suddenly would not feel secure to make that kind of investment. I think these are the key important things.
I can ask for another question to Vivek Thai here. So I know government is thinking of DNF 2.0 and, is coming up quickly in terms of especially investing in the e-governance and many aspects of the DNF project. And do you think as a country like Nepal should move ahead to take the financing as financing from a loan perspective, or, should we use the leverage our current funds for this? What are your thoughts in terms of moving forward? I think as early as next year, the government is moving forward with maybe, applying for a bigger loan for this financing options. Here, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, thank you, Karvika ji. This is, I had never heard this notion before that we should not, the notion was always that we should be taking loans, But this time around, about 1 month ago, I was in a program that a lot of people say that we should not take any loans, because the average Nepali is burdened so much by taking these loans. The important thing is not about the loan, you see. The important thing, which when we are working on these bigger issues or bigger development, bigger infrastructure, the important part is having public consultations. In Nepal, we do not have any public consultation. We don't have any public consultation built into the process. So generally, public people, the taxpayers or the common citizen who have direct interest in these things, are never consulted. So the program comes in, but it is intended for somebody else, not the Nepalese citizens. And that's probably one of the reasons why the growth has not happened. There is very little, very little trust with the public procurement, very little trust with government spending when it comes to IT. And people are very scared for any investment in IT because they have not been able to get the results. A lot of projects that were started never finished on time, number one. A lot of projects were very expensive projects. For example, they were the projects that have been implemented are a proprietary system with a completely lockdown system where they cannot do anything. Even though there were a lot of the RFPs were developed to develop an open system with having an open standard. Now with lockdown system, there is very little we can do because for every minor change, if you're working in the system, you would need to build another platform on top. And you have to connect one API going to the top and the other APIs coming to the bottom. That slows down the process tremendously. So these kind of things, we have made some very, very wrong decisions in the past. I hope we will learn from that. It's not only Nepal, there are countries in Africa who has also made these kind of mistakes. They have eventually learned that we should not be doing, we should be going more from an open source application, and we should involve the local people. We cannot be parachuting consultants from overseas who are charging $3,000. How are we going to get the students involved? I think this is a real question. And how are we going to make sure that we get these people, the local people, to get involved in the IT industry? Now, I've been saying this. I have been talking this in forum as well. How are we going to develop these kind of portfolio programs when they can be interacted? But the interest from the government side, from the public sector, is very less on this, because they say that these systems are very advanced, and I don't think our people will be able to work on it, even on an internship or work on it. But until and unless we give them this opportunity, they are never going to go ahead. I think this is a very important area that the government should consider. It's not only considering, again, I said they have to create space, but they will say, oh, we will do it. But at the end, there is no space for interaction or engagement. I think this will not lead to further development in this particular area.
One of the positive note that we've seen over the years is that the mindset is there, that the need for technology for anti-corruption or a lot of these aspects, or to streamline, to automate, does exist in terms of the mindset of the government officials, or even at the remote areas, that they do understand that there is a need. We do want that, and that's important. All of these narratives do exist, but I think few things that I see as a challenge is understanding the ROI of the tech investments, or in any rural areas, or even at the Gaon Palika level, any software that we install, how do we calculate the ROI for that particular municipality in that particular instance? So that is something that I myself is fascinated about, to say or convince, or is there a model to showcase the ROIs of these tech investments that needs to happen if we want to move ahead.
So thank you so much for your insights. If there's one more question for the conversation panel, we can still have the floor open. Otherwise, if there's no more questions for panelists to panelists, we can move on to questions with the audience that space. So I'm just leaving the floor open first if there's any more questions from the panelists to panelists.
One thing that I want to add quickly, that we're planning, a roadshow or, attending a conference in Orlando with Nepal Pavilion, and, taking few companies to US with US Chamber of Commerce. So anybody listening, here, that we're planning this around end of March, then if you're around that area in DC or Orlando area, do come visit us, talk about Nepal's tech systems and the future, and what's going good here and what are the challenges. Do visit us as more and more timelines or exact schedule is coming along. But this is one of our initiatives to showcase the success stories that we have in Nepal, and to be able to find our space, or to be able to represent ourselves, in the many areas in the United States or in other countries. So that's something that Nepal is also, targeting in the coming months. We had a Nepal Pavilion at the London Tech Week, and now we're, representing ourselves at the Shared Services Conference in Orlando. But more final terms and conditions and the schedule is coming along.
So
Thank you so much. Yes, Priya. I was just going to say thank you so much, Karvika. And I just wanted to add the thing that you just mentioned. If you want to, you can share us the link as well, or you can provide the link in the chat box, and we can always email it out to all our audiences that have been participating today in this panel as well.
Sure.
Thank you. There are a couple of questions from the audience. One of the guests today is asking, this is addressed to Vivek. Believe it's Sarah. She wants to know, is there an emphasis on open source in policy or among entrepreneurs?
Well, there is no policy document that says that we will need to promote open source. There are proponents to open source, and there are opponents to open source as well. But if you really want the industry to grow, Nepal has realized very later towards the fag ends of its journey that buying proprietary systems are going to be very expensive. The trust, but then it's not only buying it one time, but it's the renewal cost, that's recurring costs that are very high. So they have said that, okay, we will move into open systems rather than open source. The systems where we can build in as long as the API standards are available and they're published. But now there are parts that have been going into, rather than looking at the open source, they are using this word called homegrown. Now, I don't know how that works, homegrown system. But I think that's also part of the open source. But there's not been any policy document saying that we will. There were before, but now I don't see that policy document in discussions around open source systems and encouraging open source systems. Okay.
Not exactly open source, Vivek, but lately I think I read somewhere that the government now requires the developers to submit your code base as well. Earlier, they used to take the compile thing and then not have the code base, but now I think that's one of the requirements. So they are not exactly saying open source, but I think they understand the importance of having the control of the system at least. So what are your thoughts on that?
No, this was a discussion that I had with the Central of Abuse Authority, saying that, okay, you will get the open source, right? It will come on a CD. A lot of times you would also need a compiler for that. If you don't have a compiler, just having an open source is not going to make any sense. There has been a lot of new changes that have come in where companies, when they supply application, they use this word source code askew. A third party keeps that source, just in case if there is something wrong with it. If a company goes bust, I think we should adopt more open source askew systems rather than having an open source, a CD with a source code, because there's nothing much you can do with it.
Yeah, we also, together with CNI, NASIT, and AmCham, we sort of have gathered the, opinions or thoughts from all of these three associations, and we've submitted, to the government. One of the requests that we're getting is to host sort of a dialogue between government and the tech companies to sort of discuss the pros and cons of this approach, and to be able to explain the government, similar to what Vivek is saying here, to be able to accept the code is a different, code base is a different challenge, not just getting the code, but to be able to compile it, run it, showcase it, test it, there's so many aspects of code, the skill set that the government needs to be able to just read those code. And that's one challenge. The other challenge is also when we are considering, the international softwares that we are, coming in. How do we, showcase? How do we showcase or take those code for the international companies' code? Like if Microsoft wants to, sell the product, how do we own that code, or is it even possible? So those are the things that we raised concern to the officials, and probably there will be a dialogue hosted, between the tech companies and the government officials to really understand the pros and cons from the both sides.
Thank you so much, everyone, for that. And I think Sarah had mentioned on the chat saying that what you just discussed, Karvika, kind of goes back to her first question, which I can elaborate again if there's more stuff that needs to be elaborated. Was her first question originally was, what does government IT capacity look like? Is there a mismatch of the private sector talent and the ability for the government to implement e-services and e-governance? Was her original first question. So if there's anything that needs to be elaborated, the floor is open to everyone.
I think there's a big gap that I see, in terms of where the globe is headed towards and where the government resources handle. And I'm sure, Manoj Ji and Vivek will also highlight here is the government official, usually the resources that they take on are fresh graduates. They have to go through, a rigorous testing process, which is very traditional. And, most of the very techies or, that have understood the global, the tech ecosystem are usually not the ones that are applying for these government positions of tech. And that's what I felt, that there is, the government are not being as good as to recruit, or there is no such policy that they can hire consultants, but not as a, dedicated full-time programmers or, developers that are with the latest technology. They fall into the government path, and then they have their own channel. They're, bombarded with local challenges. So there's less trainings and upskilling that goes on there, versus the rest of the world has a different path. They're constantly upskilling and, solving the real world's international problems. Like our employees, solving US, Israel's, South Africa's problems. And so we are at a different path, I think, in terms of learning and skilling, and the government is at a different path with taking the resources and trying to, build something. So definitely, there is a lot of challenges there. But hopefully in the coming months, that is something also much needed, that the government demand itself would probably be a lot higher with the skills in the coming years and months. And, I hope the government is, sort of preparing themselves to recruit these, high techies or high tech people, and still be able to. And the other aspects is also the, salary or the payment schedule from the government versus the private sector is no longer charming sector as much as, the salary pay scale and, that they can work on the private sector. So there's not much momentum there. But having said that, we have massive unemployment, and we have around 70,000 people at least, moving, migrating abroad for studies or, for work. So with both of those challenges, there's definitely, any jobs that's open looks charming, but there are also challenges there to fulfill with the right candidate.
Yeah, and with those challenges, one of the perspective that I consistently discuss with my friends is that I think of it also as an opportunity to some extent, because it's not that all the government services and e-services and e-government things should be done by government employees, and government hires hundreds and thousands of developers and then build their services themselves. It could be an opportunity where government wants to partner with companies like Karvika's company, and then my company, and somebody else's company, and then build the services and then do that. It just requires a open kind of approach, what Vivek Rana has been explaining repetitively, where the government is more open towards what needs to be done. But more important than that, I mean, Karvika ji in the middle mentioned DNF. I mean, I can take that an example, Digital Nepal Framework. If I read that document, then I read that document about hundreds of these possibilities that could possibly be done in Nepal, like 80 different initiatives, 8 domains, and things like that. And then possibly that document, if you take it to any country in the world, it would apply, because it has documented that we need to use technology for healthcare and so and whatnot. I think since we have such a limited resource, and then we need to decide on which are the areas that are going to give us the best returns, the new digital Nepal framework that I at least expect on version 2 actually doesn't give me those 80, but maybe 4 that we need to prioritize next 2 years and then deliver on that. And then on top of that, we build more things. We call on private sector, the developers, the passed out engineering students to actually build on top of those infra that the government has created on top of the digital Nepal framework. So rather than asking the government to actually increase their pay scale and then recruit more developer, I think the better approach, at least for Nepal, would be that they embrace the private sector to actually go on this digitalization journey.
Thank you.
No, Manoj, that's a very good answer. That's what most of the countries are doing. Most of the governments are doing. If we don't do that, we will be shooting ourselves in the foot.
Exactly. Public-private partnership.
And the important part is creating that space. What's happening right now is the government procures the system, and they completely outsource everything to the private sector. And then it becomes a big burden for the private sector, because there is no service contract involved. For every small thing, they have to go and do it themselves. So this has created a big challenge for both the private sector and the public sector on the engagement model. How should they engage? I think this is a very important phenomenon to move, and the governments to consider that they should not be doing this on their own. They can't do it on their own. None of the people are interested to do it on their own. And if they do it on their own, it's going to be a highly unsuccessful model. And it's taking them time to learn this thing. Eventually, they will come back to developing this with working together with the private sector.
But Vivek Bhai, don't you think that it's not only the public sector, the government that is taking that approach? If you take even the large private enterprises, like what kind of open APIs does the biggest telco companies of Nepal have? What kind of APIs does the biggest bank of Nepal have, where a fresh college graduate could build on top of those? I mean, together as an ecosystem, I think we are actually lacking on the approach where we want to control the end-to-end digital experience, where you need to have your end user experience and then you control the whole supply chain of the digital experience. I think people like you or others, we should actually collaborate in educating the whole ecosystem, either it be the big corporates, the private sector, the public sector, of the benefits of opening up and then bringing the ecosystem together.
No, that's the whole idea. When the Digital Nepal framework came in 4 years ago, I said government job is not to build application. Its job is to create a platform. Don't do
Exactly.
this. This is very dangerous. And it could not move further. It could not move any further. And basically it looks like a wish list. 188, 888. So even now they're pushing up with the application. I said, don't do this. You can't do this. This is an impossible task. Government job is to create an architecture whereby you provide that platform where local entrepreneurs will be able to link and hook up with that platform to build that ecosystem.
Yeah. One thing that I'm most depressed of is whenever some government department or some local agency releases a mobile app. That is the most depressing news, am I?
Before it used to be websites, now it is mobile app.
We are at least making some progress there.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your insights. Now I'll pass it along to Priya.
Thank you. This has been an incredibly enlightening discussion. Wish we had time for more questions. A big thank you to our amazing guests for sharing their expertise. Due to time constraints, we weren't able to address all of your questions or explore every aspect of the topic. However, the depth and quality of today's discussion was remarkable. Thank you again to our panelists, to everyone who joined, and the questions that we received. Remember, you can stay connected with Zero Day Dispatch through our website, newsletter, our LinkedIn page, and other social media platforms. And I've added some of them to our chat already. We look forward to continuing these crucial conversations. And until next time, thank you everyone so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
everyone.
Nice being here
Great
as well.
conversation.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you
Have a
so
good
much.
night. Bye.